equal parts hilarious and heartbreaking, our next guest's book is being called one of the fall's most read memoirs by She Reads and Publishers Weekly. So before her event in Inner Bank Books tonight, author Kelly Foster Lundquist is here to take us into the pages of Beard, a memoir of marriage. Good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here.
I am very happy to have you here too. Tell me a little bit about your book.
So my book is about the story of my marriage to a closeted gay man in the early 2000s, and the story of our friendship and kind of our love story. And it also kind of blends in some pieces of popular culture. There's a lot of Judy Garland and Liza Minnelli in it. So
yes, I love
there's
it.
a lot of cultural studies stuff in there as well.
That people will really relate to.
I hope so,
Well,
yeah.
and I think what you've been able to do so successfully is that you've been able to blend the painful emotional experiences, but also adding humor to it all, which makes it an easier read and also a more relatable read. Why was it important to make sure that those two emotions were incorporated into the book?
Well, I think partly I'm from Mississippi originally, and so that's the way we tend to tell stories, is we tend to focus on sort of like dark humor.
Right.
I think that's a part of it. But the story was also the one that I would tell, and it would make people laugh. And so I knew that had to be a piece of it. And the laughter always felt more sort of me welcoming and like a point of recognition rather than something that felt, mean-spirited or anything like that. So
yeah, and case in point. Let's go back
to
the moment when it was revealed. Your husband came out of the closet and you happened to be dressed up like Liza Minnelli
at
the
is
time.
absolutely
There's so
true.
many cliches associated with that, and I didn't even know where to start. That's how you opened the book.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to open the book in that way?
Well, so that's sort of the beginning of the story in so many ways, and I kind of traced the book back from that. But it was Halloween. We were living in a neighborhood called Boys Town in Chicago, which is a historically queer neighborhood in Chicago. I was getting my PhD in queer theory, and we were, at Halloween with 5 of my best friends who were all gay men. And then this, kind of happened.
That was the setting?
So that's the setting, yeah.
Wow.
And that's a real life thing that happened. And so, people have always asked me, why didn't you write it as fiction or as a novel? And I always say, no one would believe that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially, yes, I can visualize it so well. Okay, I want to also ask you, what do you think that the pages of this book are going to reveal with regards to love and intimacy, identity, and maybe also some topics that people are uncomfortable talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, I hope that there is a lot of gentleness in this story and a lot of tenderness. I think as far as, being a love story, I think it's important to say that not all love stories end in marriage, not all love stories end in romance. And there are other more complicated kind of love stories that are also worth telling, that are incredibly meaningful. And so I hope people, come away with a sense of being, kind of companioned by the book, or that they find it relatable, as you say.
Right, and I also want to talk about the term beards.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of misconceptions associated with beards.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you experienced, especially when it came to titling this book.
Sure.
What challenges came up for you as you were wanting to make sure that you told this story without alienating anybody in the process?
For sure, yeah. Well, one thing that I was always wanting to be really careful about is telling my story and having it be sort of centered on my experience and not my ex-husband's experience. I don't have the right to tell his story. That's his to tell. But there were obviously pieces of his story that intersected with mine. And I think partly because of that academic background, studying theory and stuff like that, I knew that I wanted to weave in some of those pieces. Like, you have to establish who Judy Garland is, from that perspective for it to make sense, that I have a connection to her and to Liza Minnelli and all that. But beard is a term that came up, in like 1920s and 30s Hollywood. As
that long ago?
It's been around for a while. So, and the book actually opens with Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift because they had a similar relationship. But yeah, it was a term essentially, literally referencing someone a straight woman often who would act as cover for a gay man in Hollywood. So, they, like Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift, were sort of paid to date, even though he was a gay man and she was a straight woman. So there was that, relationship that was sort of set up in studio system Hollywood.
Yeah. I think that that's interesting that there is that much of a dated reference. I had no idea that it went that, but it makes sense because during that time, you couldn't come out of the closet. It had to be something that was secretive.
Absolutely,
Careers were lost, and so
Absolutely.
these efforts needed to be taken.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what your relationship is like with your ex-husband?
Yeah,
today?
we just went. I was texting him right before I came in.
You're kidding!
Yeah, we just
I
had
love
brunch like
that.
3 weeks ago. He's lovely. He's absolutely wonderful. And that's actually been one of the gifts of having the book come out. You know, it took me 20 years to write this. And I've joked a lot that I was kind of like, for most of that time, like the girl who cried book, because I would, reach out to him and be like, hey, are you still okay? And he'd be like, sure, whatever, And then it finally kind of like was becoming a thing. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey, so this is actually going to come out. Are you still okay with it? And over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, especially, he and I talk almost every day. And it's been great. It's been a real gift to have him back.
Yeah, there's a happy ending.
Yeah,
all right, so I want to
absolutely.
hear about your event at Interbang Books.
Yes. So tonight at Interbang Books on Lovers Lane, I'm going to have an event at 6 p.m. I'm going to be talking with this brilliant Texas writer, J.D. Isop, who is lovely. And we'll just be talking about the book and kind of hanging out, and there'll be Q&A from the audience, and I'll be signing books, and
all right,
I'm
so
super excited.
Where can people find you and get a copy of the book?
So my website is kellyfosterlundquist.com, and I am at Instagram at Kelly Foster Lundquist.
And it's coming out October
30th on
Okay.
Halloween
All right.
on purpose.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a lot more to come. Stay tuned. We will be right back.